Hello everybody, welcome back to another tutorial. Okay, so happy holidays, happy all the good things. New Year's is almost here. It's 2 more days, I believe. And yeah, we're gonna party a bit here. But before that, I actually wanted to get this out of the way because going into 2019, I think Flexbox is gonna be something so universal and used by everyone with the browser support and everything. So if you don't know Flexbox, then this video is gonna help you out a lot, and plus you're gonna learn it super fast. And if you know Flexbox, there are a few small things that might slip out that you might not fully know. So I'd recommend you watching this video and hopefully you're gonna pick up something new. So let's get started. Okay, what do we have here? So I just set up a bit of HTML here and CSS, but don't be scared, it's nothing too crazy. We just have a parent div and 3 children in here. Okay, so just a big div and 3 small divs in. So you can imagine this in a practical way, like you can have a section and then you can have your content in here, or smaller sections and then you can position them the way you want. So let's get started. All right, so in our CSS here, I just added some basic styles here just to illustrate on what's going on. So here we just remove the margins and paddings just so we can see everything clearer. In our parent here, we have this parent element. I just added the height of 100%, so the height of this, as you can see down here, and a border of 20 pixels. We went a bit wild with this one, but yeah, just to illustrate where our actual parent is. So again, you can imagine this as a section or anything on your page. And I selected all 3 children here and just added a basic width and height to each and just a background color. Just a random background color. All right, so naturally our content is flowing down in a column like this, right? So anything you basically add is gonna flow down in a column like this. All right, but what happens? So we're gonna go through the properties first that you can add to the parent. And then we're gonna see what we can do with the children. All right, so first we're gonna cover everything that we can do with the parent. So here in our parent class, all right, the outer one, we can add display flex. So we're gonna say display and we're gonna say flex. So what this is gonna do, it's gonna take all the content in the parent container and it's gonna put them one next to each other like this, so horizontally. Now what we have to keep in mind here is we have 2 different axes. All right, we have a main axis, which is going to be horizontal in this case. So this is our main axis. And the way you know this, the easiest, is you're going to look in which way your content flows. So if it flows like this, then it's horizontal. So that's your main axis. If it flows like this, then that's going to be your main axis, okay? And this is going to become useful in just a bit, I promise. So what can we do with this? Well, we can change the direction just like it told you. So initially it's gonna flow like this horizontally, okay? But we can change that with flex direction. So if we say flex direction, you're gonna see that a lot of things pop up here. So initially it's on row here, but we can change it to row reverse, which is just gonna have like a mirror effect and it's just gonna switch everything up like that. Never really used this, to be honest, but you can definitely get experimental with this. But the most important one is column, which is gonna give us pretty much the initial way our page flows. So it goes like this. All right, well, we're gonna keep it with the first one for now, like this, and then we're gonna switch to column in a bit. But I kind of want to emphasize on why you need to know these main axes and these cross axes. Well, we can use a few properties here on our parent element. So we can do, let's say we want to align these items in horizontally. So we can say justify content, and initially the default is flex start, which is like this, all right? But we also have center, which is going to align everything in the center. And we have flex end, which is going to align everything, you guessed it, to the end. And I'm using another laptop here, so my keyboard skills are very bad. All right, what if we want to add space in between? Well, we can do space between. See, this is why Flexbox is really nice. So this is basically going to add space in between each element, but it's not going to leave space here at the border, right? So even here, it's just going to add space in between the elements. If we want space here, we can also add space around like this. So this is going to add space around. But as you can see, this space is not even with this one. So this even spaces are only between the elements. So if you want space here as well, you can do space evenly. And that's going to have equal spaces even here, 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 and here. All right, cool. Let's mess around with this vertically. So what property do we have there? Well, we have align items. So this allows us to take our children and align them vertically. So we can do center here, which is gonna align everything like this. Our default again is flex start. So the same kind of properties apply here as well. So you don't have to remember a ton of things. So as you can see, this is flex start. If we want flex end, that also works. And I apologize again for my keyboard skills here. So that aligns everything. You cannot see this one from my face, but trust me, it's there. There's another one we can use called stretch, which is not going to work right now because we have a set of height on each element. But what if we remove the height? It's basically going to stretch to the size of our parent. So that's what stretch does. But since we have a set height here, it's not going to work. So that's never again really use stretch, but it's good to know. Now what I want to actually show you is what happens with the cross, the cross sections, like the main axes and the cross axes. Well, if we add flex direction column, these two align items and justify content, you can imagine as they change places basically. So now if I add justify content, let's go space around, for example, it's not going to do it horizontally anymore. It's going to do it vertically. And that's just because we changed the flex direction. So that's what you have to keep in mind. The cross axes are changing. So the main axes, again, that's all you need to know. If your content flows like this, that's your main axis. If it flows like this, that's your main axis then. So just keep in mind what direction if you're in column or row, and then these are going to be different. So now if we want to align this actually horizontally, all we have to do is just align items center, and there we go. We should have that in the center. So that's how these work. So we have I added another div here just to illustrate our next example very easily. If we go down like this and make our screen smaller, you're gonna see that nothing basically happens right now. Our content doesn't flow to the next line here. However, we can do that if we add a property called flex wrap. Now this is initially set to no wrap, so nothing's going to happen. But if we do add the wrap, if we make our screen smaller, you're going to see that our content jumps down here as soon as it doesn't have any space left up here. So it goes all the way down here. Now, how can we modify the way our content flows as soon as it hits the next line? Well, for that, we have a property called align content. And if we do flex start here, then all of our content is just going to come down like that. So if we make this big again, and this doesn't work, there we go. You're going to see that our content just comes down one next to each other. And here, you can pretty much experiment the same way as we did with justify content and align items. So we have center. That's not flex center, just center. And our content is just basically going to go down here in the center. We can also use something like align content space around, and that's just going to add space around vertically again. So this is probably used, it's not used that much, but it's used when you have multiple lines of content going down if you have the flex wrap on. So if your content flows down like this to another line, that's when align content is very useful. Now again, you can imagine these sections as smaller sections. So this can be a big section and these can be smaller sections. So in here, in our parent, in our children, we can add content like a H1 and add display flex to this as well and align it in center or wherever you want to align it. So don't be afraid to add more, because making more complex layouts, you're going to have to add display flex to even inner children, making them the parent to the hello here. All right. So definitely this is a more practical way of doing it. You're going to have a big div. You're going to have smaller sections that you're going to position the way you want, add more content, add display flex to this as well, and do that. Now, one thing I actually forgot here, what if we want to align the texts in this? You can also do in align items, you can do baseline, which is going to align the texts, as you can see perfectly, one by each other like that. So that's something to also keep in mind if you want to do. So there is also a shorthand notation you can use, which I recommend if you want to control the direction of your flex items and also the wrapping of it. So you can do flex flow here. And what this does, it basically combines the two properties. So you can combine the direction and if it should wrap or not. So we can do column here and wrap. So if we save this, as you can see right there, it's gonna do the same thing. Now, if we go down like this, it's gonna wrap in that way, obviously, because we have it in column. All right, so those are pretty much all the properties that you can use on a parent. Now let's move on what you can do with the children here. So we have child 1, 2, 3, and 4 selected here. I just have display flex, a simple display flex on it, because I'm not gonna bother with this now. We're just gonna do the children now. So the first thing we have is order, which is really awesome because you can easily modify the order of your sections without changing anything in HTML. So maybe one day imagine that this can be our header, this can be 2 sections, and this can be our footer. Well, maybe we want to change these 2 sections positions. Well, you can easily do that with order on the children down here. So how is this gonna work? Well, basically all we have to say is order, and I'm selecting the first one here, so 1, and basically the bigger the number here, it's gonna be on the last. So if I say 1 here, it's gonna put it all the way forward here. Now why is that? Well, initially every element by default has an order of 0. So as you can see, nothing happens if I add 0 here. However, the bigger the number is gonna be placed last here. So how would we change, let's say 2 and 3, how would we change these 2 positions? Well, this one can be order 0, which is default, so we're actually not going to do that. This one can be order 1, 2, and 3. So this is our initial actually. Nothing should change right now. Orphans or order, let's go for here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I want to change 2 and 3, I just add 2 here and 1 here. And boom, we change the position. What if I want to do 4, change the 4 and the 1? Well, again, the lower the number, it's going to be the first one here. So if I change this to 0 and I'm going to change this to 4, then this is going to be, boom, we changed its position. So that's order for you. Just remember, the higher the number, it's going to be pushed to the last element. The lower, default is 0, it's going to be the first one. So if you really want to mess a lot with these, you can just name them 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and just modify them like that. So that's order. Our next property is going to help us change the size of each container down here. So if we want to change the size, we can do something called flex grow. What flex grow is going to do is going to take all the available space that's left here and it's gonna take the space and it's gonna make it its actual size. So if I put it on 1 here, then it's gonna take all the available space left. So the empty space basically. Now, if I do it on 2, it's gonna split that empty space that we had, and it's gonna split it between 1 and 2. So if I want the 1 and 2 to be the same size, we can do something called flex grow 1 again. Boom. If I want this to be 2 times bigger than the 2, then I just do 2. And as you can see, this is gonna be 2 times bigger than this one. So if you want equal divs here with the same width, well, you can just add flex grow 1 to each, and then they're gonna have the same size like that. So even if we have empty space, even if we make this larger, they're still gonna share the same size. So this is really nice for responsive design. Now the opposite to flex grow is flex shrink. So what this is gonna do is basically the opposite. It defines the ability for a flex item to shrink if it's necessary. And if we set here 1, well, nothing's gonna happen right now. But there is another one which is called flex basis, which is basically gonna add a default width. So rather than using width, you can kind of use flex basis actually. So if we set flex basis here to 200 pixels, well then it's gonna, yeah, it's the default size of a container. That's what it's gonna do here. So this is more recommended. However, it's actually more recommended to not mess around with flex grow and flex shrink and everything like that. Rather than doing all of this crap, we can just delete everything here, and you can just define something called flex. And this is gonna combine basically all 3. So it's gonna combine flex grow, it's gonna combine flex shrink, and flex basis. So you could define something like 0, and this is actually auto. So this is the this is the default that it has. But you can combine everything like this. And the nice thing is, rather than you messing around with this, it's gonna apply some very nice defaults here. So right now, as you can see, it kind of works the same way as flex grow, but it also applies those defaults. So now the cool thing that we can do with this is, let's say we want the flex, we want it to grow. So whenever there's empty space, we want it to grow and take up the full space. The shrink is default by 1, so we're not gonna touch that. Usually we don't really touch that much, and we're gonna add a basis of 300 pixels. So this is the size that we're gonna use. So basically, we don't really need the width here anymore, but let's copy and paste this to each element like this. So basically this is gonna take effect right now. So they're gonna have a 1, 1, 1, the flex grow, so it's gonna be the same size, but as soon as it hits that 300 mark, it's gonna go down here. And that's because I added flex wrap. So if you add flex wrap and add this property here, if we make this smaller, you're gonna see that as soon as it doesn't have space anymore for 300, it's gonna jump all the way down here, and then it's gonna grow and it's gonna take up the full space. So if we go down one more time, it's gonna jump down like that. So again, this is really nice for responsive web. Definitely I would recommend to go on csstricks.com, take a look at a few examples that you can mess around with this, maybe do an image gallery or something like that. Yeah, there's a lot of possibilities with this. And last but not least, since it's getting so dark outside and you can barely see me anymore, we can also add something called align self. So this is used if you want a single element to be positioned, let's say vertically on your page. So you don't want align items, everything down here. Maybe you just want the 2 in the center. So to do that, all you have to do is just say align self, and we can do center here, and that's gonna jump it down here. And let's put this one down at the bottom. Align self. Let's go. Oh, flex end. So you can get some wacky designs here if you want. But yeah, this is kind of fun to use if you want a specific section to be moved along your page. So that's it. That's the gist of Flexbox. Hope you understand it more. Hope this helped in any way. Thank you very much for watching. We're definitely going to celebrate New Year's, and after New Year's, we'll be back for another great year with more tutorials and more awesome things. So thanks again. Please drop a subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you in 2019. Goodbye.